Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Nathan Winkelstein, the Associate Artistic Director at Red Bull Theatre and host of tonight's RemarkaBULL Podversations. For those of you joining us for the first time, these are informal conversations designed to provide insight into how great classical performers approach character and text. Part of that informal discussion is you. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can just type in your questions right into the YouTube chat, and our wonderful producer behind the camera, Jessica, will see those and we'll answer as many as we can, sometimes throughout the conversation and then definitely at the end, so please do engage with us. This evening's Podversation, we will be focusing on perhaps Shakespeare's most beloved character, Falstaff, who appears in 3 of Shakespeare's plays and is eulogized in a 4th. And tonight, we will be focusing on the tavern scene in Act 2, Scene 4 of Henry IV, Part 1. Our guest tonight is an extraordinarily accomplished actor. I could recite his film, TV, Broadway credits, and the awards he has won, but perhaps his accomplishments, certainly in the realm of classical theater, are best summed up by the fact that he has performed in more plays at the Delacorte Theatre, Shakespeare in Central Park, than any other actor to date. He is the one and only J.O. Sanders. Hi, Jay. How are you doing? Oh, Jay, I think you're muted. Either you're muted or I'm muted, which is also entirely possible. For those of you who noticed that we were a little bit late to get going, that was very much on me.
This is very easy. I somehow got it. I hit it. Okay. Didn't even know it was there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
it wasn't me for once. Yes, we can hear you now. Huzzah. Huzzah. There's no magic here, y'all. We are at the whims of technology and Wi-Fi, and we had a fun 20 minutes before we got going. So anyway, Shakespeare, a little context before we jump into this scene. We're going to be doing an excerpt from Act 2, Scene 4. I am going to be playing Prince Hal, so forgive me, and Jay will be playing the wonderful Falstaff. Prince Hal, later known as Henry V, is spending his time slumming it with a group of dissolutes at the local Boar's Head Tavern instead of paying attention to his princely duties. His main partner in mischief is an old, fat, jovial knight, Sir John Falstaff. And during a night of carousing, news comes to the tavern that a rebellion has begun in England, and Hal is called before his father. Hal claims not to be concerned, but Falstaff presses the issue. And Jay, let's jump in.
Right in. Yeah, there we are.
I set it up as like a little awesome segue thing, and then I didn't tell you about it before.
I was amazed. Just this bit of... but tell me, Hal, art thou not horrible afeard? Art thou not horribly afraid? Does not thy blood thrill at it?
Not a whit, in faith. I lack some of thy instinct.
Well, that would be horribly chid tomorrow when thou comest to thy father. If thou love me, practice an answer.
Do thou stand for my father and examine me upon the particulars of my life.
Shall I? Content. This chair shall be my state, this dagger my scepter, and this cushion my crown.
Oh, thy state is taken for a joint stool, thy golden scepter for a leaden dagger, and thy precious rich crown for a pitiful bald crown.
Well, then, the fire of grace be not quite out of thee. Now thou shalt be moved. Give me a cup of sack. To make mine eyes look red, that it may be thought I have wept. I must speak in passion, and I will do it in King Cambyses' vein.
Well, here is my leg.
And here is my speech. Stand aside, nobility. Peace, good pint. Peace, good tickle brain. Harry, I do not only marvel where thou spendest thy time, but also how thou art accompanied. For though the chamomile, the more it is trodden on, the faster it grows, yet youth, the more it is wasted, the sooner it wears. That thou art my son, I have partly thy mother's word, partly mine own opinion, but chiefly a villainous trick of thine eye, and a foolish hanging of thy nether lip that doth warrant me. If then, thou be son to me, here lies the point. Why, being son to me, art thou so pointed at? Shall the blessed Son of Heaven prove a mica and eat blackberries? A question not to be asked. Shall the Son of England prove a thief and take purses? A question to be asked. There is a thing, Harry, which thou hast often heard of, and is known to many in our land, by the name of pitch. This pitch, as ancient writers do report, doth defile. So doth the company thou keepest. For Harry, and now I do not speak to thee in drink, but in tears, not in pleasure, but in passion, not in words only, but in woes also. And yet, there is a virtuous man whom I am often noted in thy company, but I know not his name.
What manner of man, and it like your majesty?
He's a goodly portly man, and a corpulent, and of a cheerful look, a pleasing eye, and most noble carriage. And as I think his age some 50, by a lady inclining to 80. And now I remember me, his name is Falstaff. If that man should be loonly given, he deceiveth me, for Harry, I see virtue in his looks. If then the tree may be known by the fruit, as the fruit by the tree, then peremptorily I speak it. There is virtue in that Falstaff. Him keep with, the rest banish. And tell me now, thou naughty tell me, where hast thou been this month?
Does thou speak like a king? Do thou stand for me, I'll play my father.
What, depose me? If thou dost it half so gravely, so majestically, both in word and matter, hang me up by the heels for a rabbit sucker or a poulter's hair.
Well, here I am set.
Oh. And here I stand, judge my masters.
Now, Harry, whence come you?
Sorry, I've lost my place here.
I think you come from Eastcheap most of the time.
I know that, but I'm not. We're getting to that. Oh yes. Sorry. Let me take me. Depose me. If thou dost it half so gravely, so majestically, both in word and matter, hang me up by the heels for a rabbit sucker or a poulter's hair.
Well, here I am set.
And here I stand, judge my masters.
Now, Harry, whence come you?
My noble lord, from Eastcheap!
The complaints I hear of thee are grievous.
Splad, my lord, they're false. Nay, I'll tickle you for a young prince of faith.
Swearest thou, ungracious boy, henceforth ne'er look on me? Thou art violently carried away from grace. There is a devil haunts thee in the likeness of an old, fat man. A ton of man is thy companion? Why dost thou converse with that trunk of humours? That bolting hutch of beastliness, that swollen parcel of dropsies, that huge bombard of sack, that stuffed cloak bag of guts, that roasted Manningtree ox with the pudding in his belly, that reverend vice, that grey iniquity, that father ruffian, that vanity in years. Wherein is it good? But taste sack and drink it, wherein neat and cleanly, but to carve a capon and eat it, wherein cunning, but in craft, wherein crafty, but in villainy, wherein villainous, but in all things, wherein worthy, but in nothing.
I would your grace would take me with you. Whom means your grace?
That villainous, abominable, misleader of youth, Falstaff, that old white-bearded Satan.
My lord, the man I know.
I know thou dost.
But to say I know more harm in him than in myself were to say more than I know. That he is old, the more the pity. His white hairs do witness it, but that he is, saving your reverence, a whoremonger? That I utterly deny. If sack and sugar be a fault, God help the wicked. If to be old and merry be a sin, then many an old host that I know is damned. And if to be fat be to be hated, then the Pharaoh's lean kine are to be loved. No, my good lord, banish Peto, banish Bardolph, banish Poins for sweet Jack Falstaff. Kind Jack Falstaff, true Jack Falstaff, valiant Jack Falstaff, and therefore more valiant as he is old Jack Falstaff. Banish not him, thy Harry's company. Banish not him, thy Harry's company. Banish plump Jack, and banish all the world.
I do. I will.
And there it is.
There
in one
it is.
piece, tossed about, thrown in and out. Yes.
It's such a normally the ones where I have to help the actors out, I don't have to finish it. It's hard. It ends so tough. That scene.
It's a hammer. Yeah. It's also this is also the end of a much richer, longer scene, one of the great scenes of all of Shakespeare, that he has been completely caught by Hal, trying to, the whole thievery, purse robbing thing before this is a whole other scene. But this is beautiful because he wants being offered the chance to be Hal's father, to be your father. That to him is the fulfillment of his heart. And to joke and laugh with it and then be taken to task for it. You go, why are you joking so much? Why do you keep going? And why do you keep talking? Why are you saying all these things? And that it's, that he reads the coming banishment in all of that.
And you, Jay, so in full disclosure for the audience, you're actually the first guest that I've had who hasn't performed or directed, in Dan Sullivan's case,
Right.
the role that I'm having you on to discuss,
Right.
which has been it's been really interesting preparing for this with you, and kind of watching, instead of one trying to remember or rediscover, watching someone discover a role that they are destined to play. In your case,
Well, thank you. I did play. I played a version of it in a wonderful, sweet, beautifully written, outrageous comedy called Lone Star Love, which was a post-Civil War version. My friends John Haber and Jack Herrick did the book and the music for it brilliantly, and a wonderful, wonderful cast. But he, of course, Merry Wives of Windsor is the bastard child of Falstaff's journey. It was him being brought back, and a totally different thing. We did have we had the honor speech was tossed into the beginning of it, and we had, in different iterations, we had bits and pieces trying to get some of the richness of Falstaff, other than just being the lascivious chaser of women who gets his comeuppance. But in this, my God, what you see him do, I mean, he's and it just gets darker and darker through the two plays. It's really profound to watch this man who is, I mean, his flash phrase, "Give me life, give me life," and that he is so full of life and represents life, and also is total realist in terms of, everyone else is pursuing honor, and that's that other speech that we talked about, the you and I, the honor speech being, what is honor? Give me, you live or you die. What is that? Honor is to be alive and to get to keep living.
Yeah, it's sort of,
he carries that in his bosom, and there are times when he's seen as an utter coward and liar and philanderer and all of those things, when what he's really doing is he's hanging on to. He believes that the heart of life is the play, not the taking themselves seriously through hideous war and killing people. And if I go down swinging and they cut off my head, it's glorious. He's like, no, I want this head.
May I ask? I mean, what was interesting when we were discussing this, when we were wrapping up for this, is, of course, what makes this scene so compelling from Falstaff's standpoint is the relationship between Falstaff and Prince Hal.
Oh, right.
And it seems that this sort of knight who loves life and loves play and has his hangers-on in Bardolph and Peto, who I think Bart and Pistol later, who he legitimately likes, has never really, the connection, Hal seems to be reaching out for connection, right? And has obviously glommed on to Falstaff, but it seems mutual. And yet they're it's almost impossible for them to be honest with one another, and this is the closest they get, this scene, and the way they're able to be honest with one another, which I find fascinating, is through theater, is through performance. They're able to be honest with one another. And you, when we were discussing doing the scene, because you are such a consummate coach and teacher, that when we were going over the scene, you were very insistent about a couple of things, which I was
discovering as we went through.
Yeah,
I've looked at this many times, and I've been talked to about doing it, so I've looked at it and thought about it, but I've never really taken it on. I have not even performed scenes or done a reading of it before. I shouldn't say I've done readings of scenes for the my friend Mike Sexton had me doing a number of things, and I did a reading, actually, oh my God, with F. Murray Abraham, Christopher Evan Welch, and and the third person, whoever it is, going, "Yo, you don't remember me?" We had one of
Let's
those.
hope they're not watching.
Yeah, exactly. Up at the Danny K Playhouse, and we dove into it. And you can just release into this. He's absolutely operatic, but at the same time, there's it's a cascade of language that he brings people along with. He seduces everyone around him until everyone is trying to do what he does. It's like talking to him in, like when you're in a group of people speaking in wild language, or even with an extreme accent, and you find yourself being drawn into that. He seems to draw people into thinking and talking the way he does, as a seduction of sorts. And in the process of this particular scene, he gets in, and the first thing they say, "Okay, you be my dad."
Right.
Really? I mean, wish fulfillment. That's like, yeah. And then you go, well,
both of them.
I don't know that you're my son. I'm not. And he is a knight, but he's also mocking the higher upness of the king speaking to him, and he has a chance to toss around Harry as, you're just a little shit, and you're all that. He can mock everybody and blow, in effect, the life of play into all of it. But what he's hearing, and what I saw as I came through here, was as soon as he's being Henry, and then Hal says, no, come on, are you going to talk that way? Because he says, how you doing, Hal? And he says, "Splat." And Henry comes at him like, "Don't swear, shut up, don't do this." It's Hal with Falstaff shutting him down and taking the power in this scene. And then he goes on to that long litany. I mean, I know you had cut those out for the sake of reading, and I said, no, we need to hear that he just doesn't shut up. He doesn't stop. He pounds Falstaff with all of these ugly metaphors about his fatness and his appetite and his until Falstaff, because within that, Falstaff is looking at this kid going, "Why are you doing this? Why? What are you saying? Was I led to this for, and the sense of discovery of all of it, of you've set me up to say, here, you play my dad and I'm going to kick you downstairs, is where he presages that the banishment that is ahead.
Right.
And it's interesting that for a man who never lacks for words, even if he goes searching for something, it's always the next colorful whatever, but that he repeats that phrase at the end. "Banish not him, by Harry's company. Banish not him, by Harry's company." I mean, so many ways that can go. Is he hearing himself say that? Or is he saying, you're not really thinking that? You're not really thinking that, whatever it is. But it's so like Shakespeare to give you a pause after a huge rush to just say you've run out of words. For someone who never runs out of words, here is the heart of what's going on.
And that never running out of words is actually set in the part of the scene we couldn't do because it would have been the whole conversation. Is set up in the previous one where Hal and Poins have basically tricked Falstaff and Bardolph and Peto, and Hal finally, he thinks, has cornered Falstaff in a lie. Has finally cornered Falstaff in a lie and says, "What do you have to say for yourself now?" And Falstaff wiggles out. He says, "I knew it was you the whole time," right? Like he's impossible to catch.
Yes,
and then Yeah,
it's against his religion to admit that he's caught, to admit that he's wrong, to admit that he whatever.
And so the closest he can come to being straightforward with Hal, I find this like, so you told me, just as the background, you told me to play him, to play a lot of that very, very straight, especially the swearest thou ungrateful boy, is to really shut down Falstaff in that moment. And my question for you is, did Hal set up the game from the beginning of like, this is going to be an opportunity for me to chop you down, or rather did Hal learn when you were king? When you were king, you used this character of Henry IV to say some true things, right? Yeah. To say some, like, if you are going to banish everybody, don't banish me. Falstaff is actually a really good guy. Blah 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 blah. And Hal says, "You're going to use my father this way. Okay, I'm going to use my father to tell you truly what you look like." And what it looks like.
It's a bit like with children who have problems communicating, and you bring a puppet into the equation, and suddenly the puppet says, why aren't you feeling good today? What did you want to say to your father? What did he do to you? You know, and the kid can say it to the puppet, but he can't say it to the person. Then with the role playing here, there is a chance for these harsh realities to land, and they both know that, and they both hear it, and then they can both go, "Well, I was just right. Joking. I mean, come on,
yeah,
I think that I'm joking."
Yeah, well, that's like 90% of the things that follow with "I'm joking" aren't joking. Whatever that truism is.
Yeah, exactly. If you have to say, it's like saying, "Believe me," and you go, "Oh, I shouldn't."
Right. And it is interesting to me that they would never be able to have this conversation without it being in this theatrical form. I just sort of love, the meta part of me, the scholar part of me loves that, like, it's theater inside theater that allows for truth. There's something very nice about the goal of theater in general there, is that sometimes you need performance to find truth.
Right. Well, he does, I mean, Henry, young Hal is quite a fascinating, complex character because he's so Machiavellian. And he's set up as the young hero who will be Henry V, but for God's sake, he's going to hang Bardolph in the beginning of Henry V, as an example. He's going to, one wonders if he wouldn't have hung Falstaff if he had lived that long. So there's this, he's using me to be something to help him balance with his father, who is the king. So that's his way of getting, he comes down here to slum to be with me and gives me seriousness, gives me my presence weight because it's with him, but he's using me. And I want to believe that it's more than that he really loves me, that he's really seduced by who I am, by everything I give him, by my vitality, my that center of. I mean, I'm afraid of being inconsequential. I'm afraid of my ineptitude and worried about abandonment and all with him constantly, but he's always leading me, egging me on. It's an interesting, Falstaff is a very, very, for as powerful, strong as he is, he's very vulnerable because he needs the love with this young man.
And I guess that the primary conflict is not exactly the right word, but it feels like at its core, that's the primary conflict of this character of Falstaff, is that we have this man who, as you said, loves life, loves himself, loves having fun, loves enjoying life much more than honor or any of these kind of outward facing things. He loves a cup of sack and a laugh and joy. And yet when we meet him, yes, he's established that way, but he also has this love for this young man, which is it seems to me that that's very central to this character, is that be actually caring for someone other than himself.
Right.
Is Hal the only person for Falstaff other than Falstaff that he loves?
In that way, yes.
Yeah.
He has a love for the women in his life, Doll Tearsheet and Mistress Quickly. He has a strange relationship with Bardolph and Nym. But he in effect he throws them under the bus in this jokingly, and in the long run, it's like, okay, don't worry about any of those guys, just me. It really is with Hal, and Hal is also the pathway to respectability and nobility and power and a whole different form of life. And I'm down here slumming as a knight. I'm being, I carry my royalty, and the question of how much royalty do I actually have and how much is put on. But that's the weight of that is my coin, as it were. That's what I'm worth. And he gives me how can I say, he's like the gold in Fort Knox. He makes my dollars real. So if he leaves, I have nothing.
To push back against that a little bit, it is interesting that even after this tavern scene, Hal is called to his father and ends up leading the armies against Hotspur, and gives you a commission. He gives you the opportunity to use money and power and have power over people and have all of these things that Hal can provide. Like, that's why, yes, Hal's Machiavellian, but I don't think he's purely using Falstaff. I think he gives Falstaff every opportunity he can to rise, and yet Falstaff will not. He refuses. He squanders that money and does all of that. So it continues to be this odd kind of juxtaposition of
the spirit. Right. I stand for the spirit of constant play. I stand for this, that play and jest and language are more real than everything else. They're more real than health. They're more real than what they think of as honor. That to me is where my life happens. And somebody says, "So come over here, play the game our way." I'm like, no. I'll play in the. I have a way of playing. I know what I am.
Right, but that is so. But I guess that makes
he doesn't want to be an earl.
No, but he does want enough money to have as much alcohol as he wants whenever he wants.
Sure,
but
he wants to be taken care of.
We have a question from the audience. Does Falstaff here we go. This is basically what we're kind of talking about. Does he truly love Hal, or does he just need Hal's love and validation because of who Hal is? Like, that does feel like it's probably both.
They go
right?
hand in hand. They go hand in hand. Hal is who he is. He's not going to be. If Hal suddenly said, "Forget it, I'm not going to be a prince. I'm forsaking all that. I'm leaving it all, and I don't need any money. I'm just going to come live with you." I don't know. That would be quite a dose of reality to throw in the face of these guys. It all goes. It's all this constant balance, I believe.
But also, going to what you said, I love what you said about how, because I think it's a huge thing in Shakespeare, obviously, is that a lot of the characters in Shakespeare actively adore using language, being witty with language, using it. It's not just something that Shakespeare characters do. The characters themselves love it.
And he is, and Falstaff is the ultimate of that.
And Hal is much better at it than any of Falstaff's other buddies. Hal provides that for him.
He has an actual playmate there.
Right.
that's where love is too. That for sure. But for example, I played many years ago in the park. I played the Bastard Falconbridge in King John, and he came like the year before the Henrys were written, and it was a bit of a blueprint for where we're going to go, and he sort of ran rings around the others in terms of language, the whole commodity speech, which is so brilliant. And that sense of someone who you can't take your eyes off of, because they create whole constructs, whole tapestries in language in front of you, just standing there on the stage. And I mean, obviously the actor does it, but it's Shakespeare who's done it. And he went and that character stood out in that way, and was a noble truth teller, was puncturing the lies and jokes of society from the side. And yet he did not take money. He talked about commodity and said, oh, great, well, I'm fine. And if somebody pays me, then I'll be in that game too. But he's not there for money. He's there. He's a very, very honorable character. And he jokes about that stuff, but he doesn't go there. And in the end of the play, he makes the honorable choice and puts the young king in his place when he could actually usurp it. He's the strongest, it seems, in the kingdom. But to see what Shakespeare is playing at with those ideas, and how language is a power in and of itself that seduces people around him, seduces audiences, and draws you into wanting to think and pursue ideas and humor and life that richly, that clever, with that much wit.
Well, this is fascinating, Jake, because now I'm thinking about the entire tetralogy right now of the 4 plays. Sure. And why is Henry V the most successful of the kings? And Henry V is not the most successful of the kings necessarily because he's the greatest warrior. We don't ever really see him swing a sword unless they decide to stage Agincourt on stage, but we never really see him swing a sword. He's the greatest king because he's the greatest talker.
He's a great negotiator.
Well, but also he's the greatest inspirer, and he's like, what's the first thing we meet him in Henry V doing?
My first show in the park was Joe Papp directed a version of Henry V and we did stage Agincourt.
Oh, there you go. But well, of course you would, right? In the park, of course you're going to do that. But like the first way we meet Henry in Henry V, he is ripping a poor French messenger a new one, using unbelievable wit and everything, and stuff that he never learned from his father.
Yeah, that was what I first auditioned for the public with, that I had worked on in college.
The tennis ball speech.
Yeah, so this mock mothers from their sons.
But that's Falstaff.
Castles down. Yeah, no, it's the celebration of the power of that wit, and that is how, going from this with Falstaff and taking it on with him, he is the graduate of the Falstaff Academy.
Yeah, he hasn't actually. I mean, he abandons Falstaff the man, but his spending time in the tavern was not just what he talks about in Here and Shall I Imitate the Sun. It's not just, I'm going to pretend to be bad and then I'm going to be amazing. He's actually learning skills.
He's absorbing what's around him. That's true. Yeah.
And especially you as a linguist, the Falstaff as a linguist. Anne, our friend Anne McDonald says, Hal learns to drink with any tinker in his own language because of Falstaff, right?
That's correct, right.
And then we get Band of Brothers and Once More Unto the Breach and these speeches that Henry IV could never have done to the troops. Henry IV, I mean, Hotspur calls him a politician, right? Henry IV is not a... He's a spider in the web, and Hal is a quote unquote man of the people because he learned it from you.
Yeah.
And then he abandons you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was. I mean, Falstaff is he's sort of an atom bomb of language. and it lives on beyond him. Once he's gone, people have witnessed it and go, wow, that's what's possible. You know, it's and of course the thing with, as an actor, with playing it, is that you think, how could I ever be smart enough, witty enough, fast enough? Because part of what, I mean, I look at that speech and I look at that whole scene, and it's very playful and I love pumping it up, but it's also, you go back to wanting to do it very simply, very, just reaching for sense with those things that happen to be very witty and wittily spoken. And there's a whole other way of doing that too, that's not as, I mean, the thing about Falstaff, which, and I just spent the past couple of days diving back into Harold Bloom's book on Falstaff, which he dedicated to F. Murray Abraham, is that he is like God, the pursuit of God. God is an ever-changing idea. And to someone who is pursuing religion through their life, God changes in who he, she, it, the force, whatever it is. And it really grows with your own ability to perceive. I think the same is true with Hamlet. It is so rich, so full. And people say, you come back and you do it again, and it's like entirely different. You learn. But it's because you keep seeing more facets, and you keep seeing them from the angle of where you are now. And I think Falstaff is that kind of character. And that's not true of so many characters. You have very rich characters, but even Shylock can be that way. It's so, there's so much to unpack in terms of what is there, what can be understood. There are elements of Bottom, there are elements of Puck, there are elements of the bastard, but he is, it's like, how could I ever be good enough to play him? Because you bring what you have now and you go, yeah, but by next week, I'll know something else. By next year, I'll know something else. And I'm old enough now that I'm bringing a lot of accumulated knowledge and understanding, but I'm still taken with the fact that it's so rich. You just go, how dare I pretend to be witty enough to play this man, and
more than, and then also have the heart. I mean, because there's other characters in Shakespeare that are witty, right? But the thing about Falstaff,
no. He has the, and we were having the conversation when we went over that speech before the other day. I have admired so many actors taking this on, and it's always interesting because I always admire part of it, and then I go, but they don't have so much of this, or they don't have so much of that, or they don't have, and it's not, I mean, they're all valid what they're doing. It's that there is so much to take on here. You need to be so vulnerable emotionally, and yet so overriding. He does not follow any man or woman. He does, he will not follow anyone else, and yet he's not the king. He is a king in life, if you would. He leads the way, even when he messes it up completely, and then he figures out a way back around. So he's such a grand, large balloon of a character. He is filled with life, with the gas of life, and how to keep all of that in balance, and when to play what, and where are the moments that he's reaching and putting his neck out on the block for Hal, making himself vulnerable, asking for love, And when does he pull back and just go, it doesn't matter. I wasn't really asking that. I don't know what you're saying. I didn't, protecting himself and talking in circles. And you can do him. I was saying, I'm a huge fan of Simon Russell Beale, who is so intelligent and so down to earth. And I always love watching whatever he does, and watching his Hamlet when he did it, but watching everything, his Malvolio and his and seeing in that the Hollow Crown when he did Falstaff. And I remember thinking, it's interesting because I'm so taken with him. I love him so much in what he does, and he's so witty. But I missed the sense of the appetite, the overwhelming appetite that he couldn't resist, and it's in there some in what he's doing, and there's no right way to do it, no right or wrong way to do it. He wasn't wrong at all in what he was doing. I just noticed that. Oh, that goes more towards the intelligence. So that goes more towards this. So that goes more. So it's like Lear. You just keep looking and seeing how much more there is to explore. No matter how far you get into it, there's how much more is there to explore.
It's almost like this 400-year-old playwright needs to keep on being performed because there's no such thing as a definitive version. It's revelatory. I mean, that is, I think it's interesting. These Hamlets, these Lears, these Falstaffs, they're so vastly human, right? They're so huge. They're so three-dimensional that there's so much variation inside it because it's almost impossible to encompass the entirety of that person. Right. So each person they bring their own strengths and encompass it to whatever level they can. Yeah. And I don't think you should. I'm here. I'm sure I'm speaking for the audience as well. I'm here to say that you shouldn't allow your hesitancy over whether or not you can do it to stop you from doing it. Please play this role.
No. I feel like, you go and you take a run at it and you get a bunch of stuff, but you sort of inevitably come out and go, oh, maybe if that scene was so much simpler, or maybe it's in the words, but I don't hear it. The audience hears it spoken and hears what's happening, but it doesn't land with me. And there's no right or wrong. I just don't. I don't know a right or wrong way to do it, but that's what's so brilliant about all of Shakespeare, and certainly with the greatest of roles, makes you feel I have to do that. And one of the great sadnesses of my life was that I never played Hamlet when I was younger, and I would have loved to have and to take on that language. Macbeth is some of the most beautiful language. Yes. I've been in a couple of productions of that, and I still wanted to do it. I still wanted to do this with Marianne. Actually, we did a workshop at the Public a number of years ago to do it older, because it completely changes the play if you're a younger Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. There's the aspiration to everything you want and drive, and if you're older and you've been through everything you've been through, it's a final gasp for something. And what is it that makes it enough that you still venture that at this? It's all those things, but that's Shakespeare tapping into what is so deeply human about and shared by all of us.
Well, and I think that again, I'm just struck by. I love it. Sometimes it's one of those ones where like a single line of a conversation stands out to me, and it was very early when you said, Falstaff is like. I'm not going to quote you right, but something about he's life. He's all about life. He is life.
Right? He is the life force. And the crazy thing is, the life force includes what is perceived as cowardice.
Yeah.
Because life force will choose life over honor, over what is perceived as honor. And you go, honor, what is
What's
honor?
that?
Which is that whole speech. But life will, I will survive, the people coming through the camps in World War II, and how that changes their entire course of their lives, and what they hand their kids through generations of that understanding of, they tried to kill me, they tried to kill us all, they tried to wipe us out. You must survive. No matter what you have to do, you must, it's not wrong. It's at all. It is a, you go, wow, I've never been in that position. I've imagined that position, but it is, Falstaff is the life force, and it has lots of negatives to it and lots of positives to it. He loves sex and drink and rock and roll, and he's just absolutely alive. Give me life, is that's him. He wakes up in the morning and he's got a hangover. And I saw Robert Stevens play this at the National years ago. Marianne and I were over there and had a friend in it playing Doll Tearsheet, Linda Bassett, who was lovely. And I remember there was that great moment of, people say, well, how fat was he? How big of an appetite did he have? How big? Well, he woke up and you just heard somebody peeing behind a screen, and it went on and on and on. It was like the entire reservoir had gone down. And then he came out and walked, and the place was littered with bottles, and he went from bottle to bottle and poured whatever was in any bottle all into one, until it was, you couldn't believe you were about to throw up thinking about what that must be. But he's just saving absolutely everything and then drank all that down. And that's, I will not yield one bit of life and the life force.
And then Shakespeare kills him.
Yeah. No. What are you going to do?
Well, I just find it interesting. And in fact, I love that he takes, he's a great playwright, right? So your Falstaff, I hesitate to say it's the definitive because I don't know. I haven't studied the play enough. Your Falstaff, epitome of life, loves only himself except for Hal. And then this play is about this man who loves himself, who's the epitome of life, loving someone else, right, and fighting death.
Right.
Because I just find that that's brilliant. It's simple, but we have seen the chimes that, we have heard the chimes at midnight. We have what is it when life itself, the embodiment of life, faces the specter of death or banishment in the case of this scene.
Right.
And how hard
Orson Welles doing the darker version of all that comes to all that. And we've, heard the chimes at midnight. But there's enough there to draw all of us to that flame, to take a shot at it, and to hopefully uncover something that we uniquely bring to it. I dare say, whether I'm good or not, no one's Falstaff will be like mine.
What will you bring to it?
Will do my false. You know what I mean? It's like Hamlet. You will do your Hamlet. It will be unlike anyone else's. Hopefully, there's something to learn and offer in that. And one of the things I love in Shakespeare and in life and theater, when I wake up in the morning, I think there's so much to do. Oh, there's so much to do. When I get melancholy, it's because I mourn that there's not enough time to do all these things. And Shakespeare alone, just following the trajectory of all the great Shakespearean roles and all there is to learn from them, is enough to be mind-boggling and then the fact that our system is not set up to make that natural. that I have to pursue that in order to do it. I have to let people know that I do this, and then I have to be seen doing it. Somebody goes, "Oh, you're so good in that. You should do this other thing." But it's not like the old system through the regional theaters and certainly through the English out of town rep companies, where you go through a certain number of those. That's where my passion is there. And I've had to create that in a world in which that is not our system. So in that Falstaffian way, I've had to walk out and go, here's what I'm doing. And people are always going, that doesn't pay. And I go, it doesn't pay money. It doesn't pay money, but it pays in life. It pays in life. And that's how I feel. I'm constantly taking things that I have to do, that I want to do, because it's about, we're here so briefly. I want to get a chance to do all these things. Do you have another question here?
Yeah, and Jay, I just want to say, and for everybody watching saw it too. And just as you said, there's your Falstaff. And that's what you bring. I can't wait for you to play it, Jay. Burton Freeman is asking a question, which I think may be missing a verb. We perceive in the scene that Hal will eventually reject Falstaff. Does Falstaff perceive in this scene that eventuality as well?
I believe he does. I mean, I believe Shakespeare writes it in that went with the repetition of that line. Banish not him. That's that repeated line at the end, unless it's just he says it and then he sort of hears himself like, why am I saying that? But that doesn't seem like Shakespeare. He sets it up and he says, and he plays the game at first. He said, banish him, banish it, keep that guy, banish all the rest, and then goes, well, I mean, when you come down to it, I mean, if you're having trouble with him, you can banish Bardolph and Nym and Poins but not Sweet Jack Falstaff. Not unless he's just racing through that matter-of-factly, which doesn't strike me as he's also a guy who's been taken down a notch by discovering that, for all the stories that he made about how that rampage went of the cut purses and all that, he was taken by Hal and Poins.
Well, and also,
and he has to face that, and he takes it in and he turns it into something else. He goes, no, I knew it was you all the time and all that.
Right.
But he's been taken down. He's been, he's wounded.
And he's too smart to miss it, because I think, especially after you were talking to me about like how seriously Hal plays Henry a little bit, is that there is, like, from the point of view of Hal, I do think instead of it just being accusatory, Hal's going, this is what my father would say to me about you. Defend yourself.
Yeah.
And you, I think,
and my response I say, depose me? No, wait. I was just getting started. Let me do this for a while.
Yeah.
He goes, no, that's enough.
Right.
There's a cold slap in the face there of, we're just talking, we're just playing, but
no.
Falstaff knows.
He's too smart. Look at his language. He's too smart.
I was going to say, that's the thing of he keeps diving back into drink and all of this to put a distance there so he doesn't deal with it, but he sees it.
Yeah,
he needs the distance because he sees it.
Jessica, we're running low on time, but do we have any other questions? Look at that. Charles asks, the finish of Henry IV Part 2 hints that Falstaff would go to France in Henry V. He dies off stage. Do you think Shakespeare actually intended to have Falstaff at Agincourt?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. But Will
Kemp left the company.
Kemp left the company. Now that's a whole other thing, is that the relationship, we were talking about this too, the relationship between Will Kemp and Shakespeare and Falstaff and Hal with Will going on to pursue his life elsewhere, Shakespeare was hurt. He lost his great clown and had to deal with it.
Yeah, and I'm always hesitant to try to read Shakespeare into his plays, but knowing the timing, it's worth looking into it if you all are interested in following it up. And Shapiro has an interesting book that touches on it. But the relationship between Shakespeare and Will Kemp, right around the time of this relationship between Hal and Falstaff, are fascinating, and certainly fascinating enough that it must have been very interesting for Will Kemp to have read the role of Falstaff and go, Shakespeare's writing me. Yikes. Would have been a very interesting thing. But yeah, I agree with you.
How about that we have James Shapiro so close at hand, this brilliant man who writes these wonderful books and does such research and is so human that he's also worked as a dramaturg on a number of plays. The last time when I did Kent in Lear at the Shakespeare in the Park, Jim was there being our dramaturg, and he was completing his book, The Year of Lear, which I spent a great deal of time with over this pandemic time. But we are surrounded by riches and wonderful, exotic, smart, clever people who are human enough to go, I'm only human, and smart enough to write incredibly observant things about the past that we can learn from it and grow with it. And again, I keep looking and I keep standing on their shoulders going, ooh, maybe I'm a little smarter for being on top of this information, but at bottom line, I keep saying, smart as I'd like to be, I recognize that it's always reaching up,
we've got one more, and then we're going to call it.
Requires a vocal nimbleness and depth of resonance to do on stage. How do you prepare? I say a lot of words and I resonate. I have a resonant voice. I inherited it from my father, who used to speak in Quaker meetings growing up, and I actually had someone run up to me in Brooklyn a few years ago and go, "Oh my God, are you Jay Sand?" I went, "Yes." I think it was, I know you. I remember your dad speaking in meeting. There's a natural resonance that I am lucky to have and make use of. And the trick is to allow the resonance without listening to yourself. I don't think about resonance. It just is there. And a lot of it is by continuing to speak. And the muscles and everything keep working. But I love language. I think we all love language, or we wouldn't be here watching this. I love language. I respect language. I'm tantalized by the power and the emotional meat of words arranged in a certain way, and to honor them and respect them and chew them and then release them, to just breathe them, so that I'm not trying to make something, but simply speak the truth that I understand with that beautiful language. That's where the magic of Shakespeare is. And I continue to practice it by continuing to work in the theater, and hopefully it serves me well. I feel relaxed with it, which is why I think I'm suited to doing this work. But again, it's about keeping. It's like being an athlete, except that I'm too old to be an athlete. But I am an athlete. I'm an athlete in all of these, in a way that understands and accepts all of this stuff about language and classical theater, and allows the reverberation of breath, voice, and emotion to come through, and then to be as smart as you can so that the emotion merely reveals itself. You're not presenting it. That makes sense?
Yes, it made perfect sense. It actually should be clipped as a little 5-minute masterclass on how to do Shakespeare. And also, we're going to have to finish on that because we are, in fact, a little bit over time,
Cool.
even taking into account that we started late because tech is the worst. So I am so grateful, Jay, for you joining us this evening. I wasn't able to ask beforehand because of everything, but do you have anything coming up that you want to pitch or anything like that for our crew?
Oh boy, no, I'm doing a bunch of film right now because of COVID. That's the only place they can be safe enough to do stuff. I just came from Mexico working with Alejandro Iñárritu, who did The Revenant and Birdman and stuff.
Perfect.
And I can't talk about what it was, or they'd have to kill me. I had to sign NDAs and everything. But getting to work with him and a group of Mexican actors and various other people from around the world was a brilliant, wonderful joy. And I worked with Jesse Eisenberg on a film that he wrote and directed with Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard. And I'm going off to do another thing. But I'm dying to get back to the theater. Richard Nelson has a second Michael's play that I'm dying to do. And I was stopped 1 week into Girl from the North Country, playing a central role in that with a beautiful cast, beautiful show, and just felt complete honor to be there. And we were the last show on Broadway to open before everything fell apart. But they're holding it, and I'm hoping that somehow, with how all of this falls out, that I'll be able to do all of those things. And on top of that, I want to do Falstaff. I worked on Lear for 4 months or 5 months here at home, just saturating my system with it and talking with friends about it. That's another one. I've had many thoughts about Prospero. A lot of things. Life is big.
You're Falstaff. You want to do it all. So the pitch is for 2 movies whose name we cannot mention.
When you finish Saving the World is the Jesse Eisenberg thing.
So when you finish Saving the World, Girl from the North Country, hopefully soon, and
The Michaels Abroad,
and The Michaels Abroad,
which is Richard Nelson's piece, and God knows what else may come up. But there is the whole classical canon that that alone is enough to take one's life. And I feel very honored to be able to go back and forth between those. I do as much as I can with Marianne, with my wife, and who is wonderful, wonderful actress. And I'm just hoping to be out there with all of you on stage, in the audience, in the conversations, whatever. That's what it's all about. And I feel honored to be asked to continue to pursue these things. I thank you, Nathan, for asking me, and thank you, Jesse Berger, for inviting me to do this. And all my fellow actors who feel the same way, who are doing that sort of thing, looking everywhere they can. Patrick Page, and who's out there jumping on all this stuff, and countless other people
has been on this Podversation.
Yes, and Chuck Wooji and so many lovely, talented souls that I'm fortunate to be in the world with. All I can say is there's such richness in that. We have to all get vaccinated, which I am. We have to help get the world back in place in order so that we can continue this life, because there's so much to learn through art, and to giving ourselves over to art to see what we can learn.
And on that wonderful note, Jay, I'm going to do a little bit of post here, but feel free to stick around, or Jessica, you can take Jay out so he doesn't have to sit and look interested. But thank you, Jay.
Okay, thank you. Great to see you, Nathan.
Thank you. And for everybody, if you have enjoyed this program, and all of our previous Podversations and this are available on the Red Bull YouTube page and on the Red Bull website. So please do check that out. We also have a couple of readings upcoming on April 12th. Look out for Paradise Lost, The Fall of Lucifer by John Milton and adapted and directed by Michael Barakiva. And 2 weeks later, the second part of that same project, Paradise Lost, Adam and Eve, on April 26th. After that, our next Podversation will be on Monday, May 3rd, when I will be sitting down with Lily Rabe. And then after that, and that's as far out as we'll go, on May 17th, we will have a reading of Ben Jonson's almost never produced play, Sejanus, His Fall, which I'll be directing, so you know we'll be okay. And finally, all of our fall 2020 programs are free, but this is only possible through the support of people like you. Please make a tax-deductible donation today to support Red Bull Theatre and invest in the vitality of classical theatre for a contemporary audience. We are committed to continuing connection during this historic time. Your support helps to make that possible. Once more, thank you all. This has been Red Bull Theatre's Remarkable Podversations. I'm your host, Nathan Winkelstein. Good night.